our study of the cerebral arterial system, I had a difficult time conceptualizing what connected to where and where everything sat. Thus, the objective of this project is to accurately model the spatial organization and components of the cerebral arterial system. I began with a 16 by 20 inch canvas, many paintbrushes, and oil paint. I started my sketch with just a basic reference photo of myself at the angle that I wanted. I drew the arteries from caudal to rostral using this specific image from the textbook copied onto paper as my reference. Before drawing the rest of the arteries, I roughly sketched the superior sagittal sinus and the general region of the thalamus, kind of right where the eyebrow is at this angle, just for my own reference. Sketching the rest of the arteries from this angle was the biggest challenge in this project. For this part especially, I cross-referenced figures 2.6 and 2.8 from the textbook with this awesome website called the Neurosurgical Atlas. Specifically, it's diagrams of anterior and posterior circulation. It had a lot more detail than I needed, but it is a wonderful resource that I have linked. This was my final sketch, which brings us to the painting process and the general walkthrough. Starting off with the aortic arch from the heart, it will first divide into the left subclavian artery in blue and the brachiocephalic trunk on the right in pink. The brachiocephalic trunk will then differentiate into the right subclavian artery. This difference in color was not super distinct in my painting process, but I corrected it in my final project. The common carotid artery, which I am now painting in purple, originates from the brachiocephalic artery on the right side and from the aortic arch on the left. It will divide into the internal carotid, painted in red, as it continues to ascend, and the external carotid, which is in blue. I then painted both vertebral arteries in a dark purple. The left vertebral artery originates from the left subclavian artery in, again, that was in blue. The right vertebral artery originates from the right subclavian artery, not the brachiocephalic trunk. Also now pictured in the light pink is the anterior spinal artery. Originating from the vertebral artery in the royal blue is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Next, in the hot pink, formed by the confluence of vertebral arteries, is the basilar artery. After that, in the red, is now the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Moving up rostrally, that brings us to the superior cerebellar artery, which is in magenta. Continuing up a bit and ending our quick segment on the basilar artery, we have the posterior cerebral artery in blue. The posterior communicating artery branches off from here and meets up with the internal carotid artery. From this point where the internal carotid artery meets back up, the middle cerebral artery will branch out. The anterior cerebral artery continues rostrally and is joined together by the anterior communicating artery in purple. At this point, I remembered to go back and add the pontine arteries, which stem from the basilar artery. The anterior cerebral artery continues on in pink to supply the ipsilateral hemispheres. As it is not super relevant to our discussion of neuroanatomy, I will be speeding through the part where I just basically paint the rest of the figure. I finished out the rest of the painting using only colors I had previously used for the arteries, giving it a look that I share at this point in the semester. This concludes my final project on the cerebral arterial system. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed painting.